Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to get, I'm going to render this character in RedShift. Okay, so let's go over here and I'm going to quickly create a plane, polygon, plane, some kind of floor. Whoop. Okay, remember you have to make the magic sounds, otherwise it won't work. I'm just going to quickly do this, and I just got rid of the history for whatever reason, for use the transformations. And I'm just going to go and hit RedShift, and there's the RedShift render. There's RedShift IPR as well. Okay, and these are kind of like, if you hit these buttons here, you get the Maya default render view, and we're in RedShift. Okay, actually, I might just go and throw a, a fresh RedShift material on here. Don't forget that when you do this, if you go in here to RedShift Shader and you find the RedShift shader, right-click, Add to Favorites, and there, I've just put a default one on. Okay, and I can change the colors to do whatever I want with it. And then when I go to RedShift, we got the IPR RedShift. Okay, and that's basically the same thing as, like, if I go in here and I hit Render, there is cannot begin, another render is in progress, escape, okay, there it is, kick it in. Okay, that's your IPR button right there. Start and stop. Same thing as going to the render view, open in the render view, clicking that on. So, now, by default, you'll also find that we've got your default light is on. If I go into the render settings here, right at the beginning of the common, right down here at the bottom, they've got enabled default light. Okay, and boop, I hit it again. We've got no default light. It's typically a light that's directional and it's sitting on top of your camera. And now I want to put in some real RedShift lights. And for RedShift, we got a few different types. We got the physical light. Okay, so I got a physical light here, and I can see it happening and pull it forward, pull it up. Okay, and I'll hit a quick Control A to go into the attribute editor, and maybe I'll take this thing and I'll give it a quick spin. We actually, this one? Nope, of course not. I'll pull it up this way and this way. Okay, and currently this is set to a rectangular area light, and you've got different choices right here. You can use point lights, spotlights. Okay, spotlights typically give a crisper shadow edge and things like that. Directional light, so it's straight on directional. You'll find your intensity multiplier. You can bring this down. Okay, it's too far. There. Directional will give me a nice straight shadow. And exposure, this controls how bright your image is. If I start bringing this up, the multiplier, I can take this back a little bit. Okay, and you can put color in your light, things like that. Anything else you want to know? Down here there's other default settings for these things. So if I was using the area light, there's some settings here for the area light. There's settings for the spotlight. If I go back up here and I switch from directional to spot, I can see that my intensity multiplier is down and my exposure is really down. Okay, I think this defaulted to 0. Oh, 0! And this one here is defaulting to 100. And I could probably take my light and pull it back. Also, too, sometimes I find this looks a lot like the Maya Spotlight panels. Look through selected. If you're trying to focus on what you want to aim at, and I'll hit F there, and you can kind of see what's going on. Bloop. Then back here in the perspective camera, and what was I rendering out of? I was rendering out of camera 2. Okay. What else do you need to know? As I go in here, the light, where is the settings for the light manager? Select the light here. I don't like the light manager as much. It takes up too much room, and the property editor really sucks. I can't even close that. Oh, I can close that down. Okay. Yeah, I don't like the property editor because you can't see all the things that are over here on the side from it. You can make the light invisible. Right now we're on area light, so we can switch to spotlight. We don't actually see the light. You can adjust the cone angle, make it bigger and smaller. Here, let's pull this up this way. Um, and also the fall off angle. The fall off angle will go in and basically blur the edge, and you combine that with a little bit of fall off curve. Okay, so usually I do something like that to get rid of, there's usually a little white line, so you got to combine these two and kind of find that spot that you want, unless that's what you're looking for. Okay, and what else do we have? Now, if I take this and this and this, we can just, I'm going to put on another RedShift material. It's in my favorites now, apparently. I don't see it. Why is my RedShift not giving me this? Assign new material, RedShift material. Okay, and it's set to custom color. Let's just go and throw on. That's interesting. I had this set up so I could get the color before, but it's gone. And also, too, with your RedShift materials, you've got lots of different variations in here that you can play with right away. You can choose whatever you want. What we want to do is we want to get a little bit of a rim light on here. So I'm going to go and create another light. I'm going to create another physical light. And with this physical light, I'm just going to go over to panels, look through selected. And where are we? We're in the front. Okay, so this one here is an area light. And area light, I can kind of see it's doing something along here. We've got options on the light for pulling down its... Where am I here? Area light. Ray contribution affects specular. So I didn't like those really hot hits I was getting. I like it when it gives me a little bit of an outline and things like that, but I don't like the hot hits. And you can take up the intensity multiplier and make it harder. Okay, maybe I'll kind of put this on an angle so I can see there it's giving me that little bit of extra edge on here. And remember, you can put as many of these area lights in as you want to get this kind of effect. And I could do things like also scale it. I'm just middle clicking. I've got it selected right now, and if I'm middle clicking in this window, I can totally do this. And it's kind of eating up the edges here, making them sing. This is way too hot, but it's nice and big, so it's giving me these nice edges. But if I take my intensity multiplier back down, okay, keep going. Something like that to make them pop from the background. I don't like the fact that the light is connecting to the floor. I've got the light selected. If I hold down Shift and I grab the floor and I zip over into rendering and I hit lighting and shading and I hit to break a light links, now that doesn't light up the floor anymore. I've still got the light selected, and where's the visible? Right there. Bloop. So I don't want to see it. Okay. And what have I got? There's that spotlight still. The spotlight, if I go down here, cone angle, shadow, we can go into the shadow right now is a little bit on the harsh side. Okay, so I can make it soft. If I start to make the shadow soft, you'll notice that it gets kind of blurry and noisy down in here. You can affect it with the samples. You just got to find that spot. You got to zoom in on it and figure out exactly what it is that you want to change. Okay, also too, because I'm getting the softness in here, I'm probably seeing a little bit of specularity on this material. And maybe with the material, what do I want to look at? If I look at reflections, the roughness is kind of low, so I'm getting this kind of shiny effect. So if I take the roughness and I start to crank this up, okay, now it starts to blur out. There, that looks kind of nice. I could change the colors on these things too if I wanted to. On the lights, that is, to make them pop a little bit more, so it's a bit of a different tone. But I'm feeling good about this. And we've still got some dark areas in here, and typically I'm going to fill that in with more lights. So if I go to RedShift, if I go into... Actually, you know what I might do for this one? Instead of going in and putting another fill light in here, we might do this a little bit differently. Let's take a look at why it's not filling up the rest of the areas. If I go into the render settings and I throw on GI, and what have I got? I've got a radiance cache and brute force. Actually, it should be giving me more of a fill than that then. I am seeing blue down here. Okay, I threw on these two here. What about brute force and brute force? Yeah, I like the irradiance cache. It goes a little bit faster. Number of bounces 3. Okay, maybe I will throw a RedShift light in, and I'll throw a physical light in. And let's go to panels, look through selected. And this one I want to fill in from this side here a little bit. Actually, I guess maybe my key light's going this way, so I'm going to go something like this angle here. Now this is really way too hot. So a fill light is typically half the amount of your key light. And if I checked, I'm way back from my freaking microphone. Okay. If I go in here and I take a look at my intensity multiplier, let's just drop it down to 50%. Don't forget that you can go in here and you can disable these lights just by going in and turning them off here to see what your fill light is actually doing to your surface. Okay, so maybe that's not enough. Maybe I don't like how the fill light is actually affecting the floor, so I'll just break that, break light links, so I just see black. And crank up the exposure just a little bit. Okay, and that should be good. And I'm just hitting these things here. Basically, that turns them off, and now I got this in. It's filling up the character. And what other things do I want? I would like to see a little bit of crepuscular rays. So let's, for crepuscular rays, let's create another light. And this time, when I create the light, let's go in and use the lights, the IES light. So I got an IES light down here. Let's go panels, look through selected, and let's just see what I can do with this one. Let's do something a little bit funkier. Let's go and put it in from behind here. Whoop. Okay. And now we're not seeing anything through this. I gotta find myself a quick little file, and I know I've got one. I'm just gonna quickly go and look. And where did I put these things? I'm just gonna pause while I look. Okay, there. We'll put in my alien abduction light, and here you can see that it's doing something. Okay. But we can't see really what the light is doing because I'd have to bring it down a bit closer. What if I bring it down into here, and you can kind of see that, yeah, I can see a shape of the light. Let's see if I go back further. Yeah, you can see the light has shape. Okay, let's just put this thing back where it was. And that's not working. Hold on a second. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm looking through the perspective. Okay, when I undid, I kind of went and managed to delete the light somehow, but I'm back figuring this all out. And I'm looking through the light, and I can kind of see the shadows I'm creating. Okay, great. And let's go back to panels, look through this. Okay. So, I can manipulate this. I've got the light selected over here. We've got it plugged in. Something I'd like to see is I'd like to see some rays. So if I go into render settings, here in RedShift, the render settings for this are hidden in the environment section. There's environment, and then there's atmosphere. If I put in atmosphere, shattering, okay, or volume scattering, we're not seeing anything. Okay, I can play around with these settings. I'm still not going to see anything. What it is this time around is that we got to go and find that IS light. So let's select it. And on the IS light, let's bring this up. If I go into the volume section, there's a contribution scale. So if I bring this up, I start to see crepuscular rays. Okay, and to kind of go in and correct the noise on these things, let's go and do something like this. If I want to correct some of these noises, I can play with the samples and that'll smooth them out. So let's just pump that up, and hopefully it's not going to kill my render time. Now, down in here, as I'm looking, I'm not seeing a lot from this. I'm just seeing a little bit of the beam. And let's see, I'll move this over. If I go to panels, look through selected, I can pull my light up a bit. So I just want to make more beams, more crepuscular rays. And if I go in and start playing with my light, and if I bring up the exposure, okay, you can see it exposing the rest of the ground and everything like that. I might break that if I wanted to, depending upon what I'm looking for. And if I want to see a bit more noise action in here, I just want to check something. Is that going to smooth it out even more? Okay. If I want to go in and see more noise in my fog, I'll just go in here and I'm just going to zip into my volume scattering. And here we've got the tint. Okay, and here I'll just make it so it's yellow, and you can see there's a tint to the fog. Don't forget, there's more stuff you can look on the RedShift website for. Let's just bring this back. Okay, and also I can go into this tint area too, and I can map this, and I'll try mapping it with some kind of 3D texture, and I'm going to use the solid fractal again. And there we can start seeing it's breaking it all up. It does create a little node here, and this node, when I scale it, it's going to affect the size of the solid fractal within your fog. Okay, and I think also too I might do something like, I don't like this other shadow on here, so I'm just going to quickly grab the light, select it over here. Okay, select floor, lighting and shading, break. Oops, that wasn't what I want to do. Actually, it doesn't look like shadow links works. It's break light links, so I don't see that. I just see this fog behind them. And that's it for the quick render in RedShift. Also, too, when I'm rendering out, just remember that it's here in common, and you want to do something like, I probably wouldn't use the IFF. I'd use either a PNG or an EXR file, but we won't worry about that for now. Animation, you turn on animation, and you render out however many frames you want. You can pick your camera from here. You can change your size, better quality. What is it? There's also output quality up here. Minimum samples, maximum samples. This will go and clean up some of the noise that you're getting, but it's going to slow your render down a bit. But it's RedShift. Things go really fast. And what else? Yeah, and you're going to do a batch render from here. Okay, and that's it. Every pair of shoes in the place.